The UFC Picks podcast is brought to you by the UFC Picks app, a new free-to-play pick'em app that gives you the chance to win £5,000 in a cash giveaway. Check out the Picks app in the App Store and get your picks in now. Hello everybody and welcome to the UFC Picks Show. So, as always, we should just call this the Technical Difficulties podcast.
I knew you'd bring this up.
I had to. I've got to. In case everything becomes a disaster, and we have to redo the whole thing.
Generally, we will try and improve this podcast. As long as you don't call me unfunny Bill Burr in the comments, we will genuinely do our best to improve this podcast.
That wasn't just me calling you unfunny Bill Burr. But you are unfunny, and you do look like Bill Burr.
Well, they did have a point.
It was funny. We were so we've recruited someone to help us, Amy Kelly, AKMMA. And she's going to help us with the sound and with the setup, and we've just had her on the phone trying to figure out why the new settings that are on the Zoom recorder weren't working. And then halfway through the call, we realised that Ollie didn't have his mic turned on. So we solved that problem pretty quickly, didn't we?
Thanks for your input, Amy.
So Amy, thanks for humouring us. And
brought the specialist in. She told me to turn the microphone on.
Right, let's hope this all records right, because I don't want to have to do this again. It melts my brain the first time. It's just trying to keep up with you, mate. Trying to correct all your nonsense.
What a card.
Mate,
it's fun.
Loads of... Oh, yeah.
Well, let's go. So we've got 20 minutes again.
Hang on a minute. Okay.
We've got 20 minutes.
Yeah, I can't set my time because my time is there.
I'll set it. You ready? We did 24 and a half last week.
Yeah, but then I'm having one of my paranoia moments. I need to make sure everything's recorded. You're right, one.
Did you look? You just looked for your phone again, didn't you? Right. We're 3 seconds in.
We've got Wad in the house as well, Wad the dog. So if you hear any giggling or tapping on a keyboard, it's Wad. If you hear any tapping on a keyboard, I've got a couple of pens here ready to throw at him.
Right.
Raptors are away, so it's peaceful in the
You've wasted 15 seconds of our review. Mallory Martin
Hang on a minute, you're jumping right in.
Well, I just thought we could just go randomly through. We're not going to go through the whole card, are we?
Go on then.
Mallory Martin got jiu-jitsu'd.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. Real bad. But man, she hung on in there as long as she could, didn't she? She made a couple of sort of fundamental mistakes, and she paid for it. She nearly lost an arm in about 3 different ways, didn't she?
Yeah, I was actually surprised at how aggressively she closed distance. I thought that could have been a bit better measured, or at least not quite as enthusiastic. Made her opponent work for it a bit instead of just kind of diving in there. But maybe she felt like she was confident as soon as it hit the floor. It was just,
yeah, she was mistaken.
Yeah, Viana's armbar setups are good, and and it's the same thing. Like as soon as you engage somebody in the first, well, we'll get onto this with the with the Rodolfo Vieira. As soon as you engage somebody in the first couple of minutes of a fight, when they're not sweaty and there is more purchase, you can clamp onto people a bit better.
For sure. Great win for her.
Yeah.
Yeah, great win. I don't know where she's going to go next. I don't know who you'd give it to her. But
what I normally have is the rankings pulled up, which I will pull up now. It's the same with the next fight up, Bilal Muhammad. Like, where does he go next?
Man, Bilal
he looked really good.
Boy.
He ate those low kicks like they were biscuits.
Is my boy. He is just suffocating in it.
Was that the one pick you got right?
No, I was 5-3 or 4-3, I think. But quite a few fights dropped out, didn't they? Changed.
Yeah,
but no, I was all right. So we got off to a very bad start on the Conor card. Then I had an exemplary performance.
You came second overall.
Came second on the next
nationally.
Card, and now I'm just sort of a mid-tier performance.
Mid-tier. Turned into a bit of a journeyman, really, when it comes to UFC picks.
Yeah, a little bit. But like we always say, don't want to get a pick wrong. Don't make one.
The good thing is that it's all recorded, so people can remember when I was trying to convince you to go the opposite way and you made the wrong pick still. So
anyway, back to my boy.
Not off me. Go on.
Man, Bilal he's crisp. He's got a horrifically high work rate, hasn't he? And he sits just on the edge of range where you're not quite sure whether he's in or out and whether you can get hold of him or not. I was just blown away by him. I just think he's the guy coming up, isn't he?
Yeah,
he's the guy coming up.
Like there's I talk about it all the time, but about stance switching. You could see the value in stance switching when that lead leg starts to get eaten up. Yeah. Because he would take a kick and he would switch to southpaw and keep fighting as if it was as comfortable as orthodox.
Lima's got a wicked low leg kick, isn't he?
He just didn't have anything to go with it, did he? He could have done with Usman's jab.
Yeah.
Usman's jab and that calf kick, that's game over.
I thought Lima was a touch. I know obviously he came off worse, but I thought it was a touch better than he had been. I thought he's shown a couple of improvements.
He's been out for ages though, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think he could have took a couple of positives away from that. I know he's never going to want to lose, but I reckon he could have took a couple of positives away from that.
Yeah,
Bilal was a tough fight, and
Well, Bilal is currently in 13 in the rankings. You've got to think he's going to climb up a bit, but he didn't beat anybody ranked, so it's he could hold steady. But Vicente Luque is just above him. And Bilal's got a knockout loss to Luque back at UFC 205.
What about the leech?
Oh, that'd be a fun one.
That'd be fun, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's
what about you give him the leech
firepower
and then
versus pressure.
Maybe leapfrog each other.
But then maybe not. Maybe you might be able to get somebody higher up.
Yeah.
I mean, what's happening with Magny's coming off a loss to Chiesa. That might be a good opportunity for him. Has he fought Magny before? No. Yeah, you see, that's the thing with his record.
That would be a big fight, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
That would be a big fight for Bilal, and there seems to be quite a bit of hype. Like, he seems to be well respected within the coaching circles and the other fighters. He seems to be highly respected. Maybe that's a good call, like a 7th, 8th or 9th ranked fighter.
Yeah.
Give him one of those and see if he sinks or swims.
Yeah.
Suffocating way of fighting, isn't it?
Yeah. And just, I mean, I say it again, it's not easy to walk through those kind of kicks. Like, they do wear on you. You could see the swelling as well.
Yeah,
it was
tough.
But then switching stands kept working. I'm waiting to get onto this fight.
Anthony Hernandez.
What an upset! What an upset! I mean, did
destroyed
anybody
him
pick,
via conditioning?
Yeah. I wonder how the people in the rankings on the Picks app got. Like, I wonder who went for Hernandez.
I can see that. Let me see if I keep talking. Because I can find that.
What is he? Purple belt coming in, taking on a guy that's not only a black belt, he's the black belt of black belts.
Yeah, 7-time world champ.
Oh, his nickname's the Black Belt Hunter. I mean, he's the Black
and
Belt
he gets
Hunter
subbed
slayed
by a purple
belt. It just goes to show, though, the old adage of the belts becoming reduced when punches to the face are added, or in fact when a limited gas tank
millimoles of lactate hit your bloodstream.
Did you hear at the end of the first round when Anik, first of all, as soon as the mics were made live, you could hear Rogan and DC laughing. They were definitely laughing, and then before Anik got his readout, Rogan was like, he is the most tired person I've ever seen in
the history of the sport. It was like, but previously, before that, everyone was like, oh, he's in trouble now, Hernandez is in trouble now. Then they're not even sweating yet. Oh my god, he's in so much trouble. It's impossible to get out of there. It was impossible for this fight to go any other way than complete death. And
he was so tired he couldn't even hold his arms up.
He died a little in there, didn't he?
Did.
It was interesting. So last time,
sold his jiu-jitsu chain.
I wonder if he's allowed back in the class.
He always wanted to be a sushi chef.
Well, you mentioned before, so now before going into that fight, he'd got tapped in a jiu-jitsu tournament.
Yeah.
And now he's been tapped by a purple belt in the UFC. You've got to be thinking what that's done to his confidence.
And even in that fight that he had before against Saparbeg Safarov, what a name, Saparbeg Safarov. I sound a bit like James Acaster when I say it like that. He got busted up bad. Do you remember? His eye was swollen shut when his opponent tapped out.
Isn't he?
And especially given the fact that that's the thing though. He's like, what is he? He was 7-0 going into that, was he? Like, the expectations of him are so high. When you step into the UFC with the nickname the Black Belt Hunter.
The whole sort of journey is now shifted, hasn't it?
Yeah.
It's just not.
Look at that Wikipedia page. Like, from 2009 to sort of 2014, 2015, that was he won ADCC at under 99 kilos.
Amazing. He is built like I don't know if a brick shit house is appropriate, but that's what he's built like.
Yeah.
And he's
built like a shit. But
like we've said before, muscle is not a problem as long as you got something to feed it. That muscle needs feeding. And he just he couldn't, his muscular system just couldn't keep up with the debt of oxygen that he was owed.
But
unfortunately.
this is why fighters that are lifetime grapplers and wrestlers, when they start competing in MMA, they look like strikers because they're like, I mean, I could grapple hard for 3 minutes, but if I don't get a submission and he gets back to his feet, we're as tired as each other. Yeah. And I've won the first 3 minutes, but if he lands a good shot and puts me down on one knee, I've lost the round.
Yeah. And there's a tipping point, isn't there, with like fatigue. If you want to drop off that cliff, I mean, some people's cliffs are a lot steeper than others, but you know, there's just not enough time in the fight to get it back and get your arms going again and be in a place where you can get on the attack again.
No.
Tough, innit? Well, I mean, I don't know what they'll do with him, but he must be on a high right now. He's probably walking into his jiu-jitsu school with
but he is.
Yeah, with his chest puffed out.
What's his
Marcus
6th submission?
Pitolo was a fun fight, right?
Yeah, it was a fun
Pretty
fight.
Even.
Yeah, I was surprised how aggressive Pitolo came out, because that's quite uncharacteristic. I mean, I know he's got some first round finishes on his record, but they were all earlier on. And since he's been in the UFC, especially given the fact that he was coming off a couple of losses, I don't know whether it was tactical why he jumped on Julian Marquez that early. I mean, when was his last fight? I mean, 2018. Maybe he thought, if I start aggressive and catch him cold. But Marquez is he's just a brawler, isn't he? He's just a tough, durable individual that if you back him into a corner, he's going to dig himself out of a hole, and he'll remember his lines when he gets to his post-fight interview.
yeah, he was very curated, wasn't he? It was nice. He's coached by James Krause, isn't he?
Yes.
Since we've been doing the podcast, I keep seeing James Krause in the corner. I keep seeing him behind some of the fighters that are winning a lot. It seems to be he seems to be one of those coaches. Seems very impressive.
Yeah, he's in there, isn't it? I think he's still working with the pieces himself.
Yeah.
So when he's working with his athletes, he's like sharing knowledge instead of passing knowledge down.
Yeah.
And I think
he's still evolving. He's still evolving himself and his coaching and stuff. It's a potent sort of mix, isn't it?
And
it seems very He's very intelligent and very in tune with all the different aspects of the game coming together and seeing it as a sport rather than its individual parts.
Yeah, he's got a very logical and very linear approach to it. Which, because he did the podcast with V, and that was really interesting. Just kind of hearing him kind of like the discoveries that he's had, not only as a fighter but then playing the role as a coach in his gym, and like, you know, doing his own rounds but then also holding pads for rounds and going over the same and retreading the same footsteps. He's you know, his pathways are so defined now. He knows the clear route to victory.
I always find it super interesting that the most talented players don't necessarily end up being the best coaches, because they're doing it and they don't necessarily understand the process of why they got to how they can just do it. They can just do it. Whereas the guys that have had to really like work so hard for every little technique or aspect of their game, because they've learnt that process, it's very easy for them to then put that process into someone else and let them learn along the way with them. I'm not sure whether that's the case with James Krause, but he definitely seems to be you know, one of those up and coming coaches that's going to be around for a while.
He's had a lot of fights himself, and he's done the short notice fights, the up weight class fights, he's done the grappling matches, and he's just a very experienced individual. Plus he's been around for a long while as well, so he's got a wealth of knowledge, and he like I said, he's very linear in the way that he filters everything. Like, he's had a few short notice fighters step in. He's got like this whole bunch of fighters that if the UFC pick up the phone, we're like, we need a fighter next week, he'll have somebody to throw in, and they'll most likely win by guillotine in the first 60 seconds. Nice. It seems to be the case. Kelleher Simon was a good fight.
Yeah, Simon's just relentless, aggressive, horrible, isn't he? He's got that good mix of decent level counter striking and then that wrestling to fall back on when he needs it, and offensive wrestling.
Yeah.
Kelleher is tough though.
Had a lot of fights,
really tough.
A lot of experience.
Yeah.
Is it, what's he now? 34
Just couldn't quite put it together, could he? Like, all the bits were there, but his timing just wasn't quite there, and just didn't bring that total package.
Well, that was it. That was the difference. Is Kelleher was looking for the opportunities to land that perfect shot or make that perfect transition into the next stance, whereas Ricky was just combinations, grappling, level change, feint. He wasn't overcomplicating anything. He was just letting it flow out.
It's just a funny thing, even in training and sport and sports performance, sometimes your time is just off. And you don't feel like you've done anything different, but your time is just off. And, we're dealing with such small splits of seconds that if your timing's off, how do you get it back?
Yeah. Oftentimes you hear a fighter say, I just wasn't
there.
And oftentimes it'll be they'll come through a rough first round because we don't always hear from the guys on the losing end. But what's his name? Marquez. It was a good example. He just wasn't himself in the first couple of minutes, which is why Patolo jumped on him.
Yeah.
It didn't take long for it to wake him up. But he may not have been caught quite as cold if he'd have had a fight 2 weeks ago or 6 weeks ago. He might have met that force with force.
Yeah, it's tough. That flow of competitions are very important.
What about Gastelum Heinisch?
Yeah,
Heinisch is he's a bruiser, isn't he?
Well, I thought Gastelum will put him away. Yeah. Before obviously before watching it, I thought he'd put him away. I thought he'd be able to dispatch him, but Heinisch is toughening, durable, and kept going. And I love Kelvin. I think he's great, and I enjoy watching him. And I'm glad he won. He looks in good shape. He looks. He was heavily emotionally invested in it. I don't know if you watched the post-fight.
It was a 3-fight losing streak, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was just so relieved to get that done and out of the way. Yeah, impressive. I'm not sure what you do with him next.
I don't know if he's matched up, but I would like to see him fight Castaneda. And I know that's a jump back up the rankings, but it would make sense to me for him to get someone like that, like a Castaneda or a Vittori.
Oh, that'd be good.
Yeah,
Vittori would be a fun fight, wouldn't it?
The one I would love to see is Paulo Costa, but obviously he's right up at the top facing Whittaker. But I mean, Gastelum's right down at number 9.
He's put himself. I think Gastelum said, "Look, anyone drops out of that Costa fight, roll him in. He's ready.
Yeah,
he'll go."
Weidman would be a good one. That'd be a good one, wouldn't it? Old middleweight titan, although he's not. Chris Weidman's new school, but he feels like an old school titan.
He's been around for a long time. Hasn't he?
Yeah.
No, good on KG. I was happy to watch him get that win, and I think we said previously it was a big step up for Heinisch, but he's sort of passed it in some ways, didn't he? Like he could show he could hang with that level.
He's not lost any ground, I don't think.
No. I suppose that's the best you can do coming off a loss. Hold your ground and show you're supposed to be in that level of the division. That's
it. And he'll be, and the other thing as well is he'll be looking up the rankings for his next matchup anyway.
Yeah.
Because now he's picked up a loss, but he's proven his worth against Gastelum. They'll put him in there against someone like a Weidman, or I don't even know what Tavares has got coming up, but there are a few interesting matchups there of guys that have fallen a little bit that could also deal with that boost from a tough fight like Heinisch.
Yeah.
He's got good opportunities in front of him, but Gastelum was just a bit more savvy, isn't he? He's a bit more wily, a bit smarter from his higher level competition, I'd say.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, good on him.
What do you reckon to Grasso against Barber then?
Grasso just smashed it. I was just really, really impressed with her. I thought she could get. I thought she'd come off worse in the grapple. I thought she could, Barber's very athletic and she's very powerful and she goes after it quite. I thought she was great, technically, tactically, very, very sound. I think she's done herself. She's sort of shown that storyline. She's shown that she can go in against someone who's clearly sort of more athletic and she can beat her for technique. Fair play. Really, really, really solid performance from her, I think.
I mean, where is she right now? So Macy Barber's ranked number 10 and she was fighting Grasso at number 15. So Grasso will now get a big jump in that division. But then Macy Barber's she's probably not going to fall too far. She's still in that mix of people that are names. I mean, she could fight a Shevchenko or an Alexis Davis, Andrea Lee.
Yeah.
We talked about it before, didn't we? So she came off her first loss and then she had to have a surgery. So there was a lot of time sitting around dwelling on that, being frustrated, and then you can imagine how much she built that first opportunity to fight up again. So I guess this is more of a question than anything from a coaching perspective. Would it be more beneficial for her then, as long as she's healthy, to turn around another fight fairly quickly?
Yeah, I would think so. I would think of something like that. I would think, momentum is massive in all sports, and I would think as long as she came out completely healthy, there was no like 50-50s. Should you rest this or can you get through it? I'd be looking to get her in there in the next 8 to 12 weeks, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I was thinking even sooner. I mean, what is there's a couple of fights coming up. I'm just wondering. I'm just having a quick look through the cards coming up, see if there's anything in her division. It'd be good to see her get a quicker turnaround, because I do feel like she looks a little bit like, do I go now? Whereas Grasso was just kind of cruising, a bit like Ricky Simon against Kelleher. Just putting things together well without the hesitation and the lag.
Yeah, and I think if Macy does put it together well, she's going to be a handful in that division for all the way up, probably.
Yeah. She's got the physicality, hasn't she? She's clearly tough. She clearly wants to fight.
Yeah, definitely wants to fight. Yeah,
it's just got to be kind of channeled and managed. Yeah, but I think as soon as the fight was over, I thought, well, she looks healthy. She'd probably benefit from fighting in about 4 weeks' time. Just to
it might, it might, on reflection, it might just be a slip up for her. She might get back on the horse and keep going.
Yeah.
Good.
Main event.
Yeah.
How impressed were you?
He's an impressive fighter. The one thing that probably stood out the most was nothing to do with his athleticism, nothing to do with his technical work. It was just the calmness that when he got in a bit of trouble, he didn't panic. He just, took a breath, covered up, did what he had to do, and obviously came back to turn that around, because he was in a little bit of adversity there just for a second. Yeah. And you would, anyone that was sort of weaker minded, their world could be closing in on then. Oh my God, I just got rattled against my, the guy that I know this guy, and he's rattled me, and now I'm in trouble. But I was super impressed by the way he just handled it. Just handled it like a pro. And and then conversely, when as it was flowing towards the finish, Burns didn't handle it in the same way at all, really. He got rattled, and then that was the beginning of the end, really. So it was interesting to see. Do you feel like Kamaru had just slightly incremented a couple of his skills? The jab seemed a little bit sharper. The leg kicks, the body kick seemed a little bit sharper.
I think it was more about his mentality going into it, and I would say that's more down to maybe what Trevor Whitman says as opposed to what Trevor Whitman coaches. So, like, the Kamaru Usman of past, he's been jab, clinch, foot stomp, wrestle, exhaust, wear down and beat up. And I referenced it a couple of times, in the build up to the fight. When he was going in there against RDA, at the end of the fourth round, he went back to his corner and Hoof went, go and finish this guy. Yeah. And he didn't. He played around at range for a few seconds, and then he shot in and took him down because it was the safest, most obvious route. I think what was communicated there was like when he was told to go and finish him, in Kamaru's head, that was something more than what he was doing already, which made him uncomfortable, which is why he didn't try it. Especially because he's won 4 rounds over an old lightweight who's, already been beaten up for 20 minutes. What Whitman did at the end of the first round, when he went back to his corner, he said, "You're the champion because of your jab," and he won with a jab. Yeah, like he basically knocked him down jab, twice. It's beautiful.
It's efficient, sharp.
It's beautiful. I pull it apart on Aftermath, and I had a really interesting realization, which I won't talk loads about right now because people can check it out on the other show. The difference, we were talking about fighter archetypes: fighter, martial artist, athlete, competitor, athlete. Yeah. It's the same kind of thing. So Kamaru Usman is competitor, martial artist. I am fighter, martial artist. I compete, but I compete to win and I compete to fight. The drawback in that, and I recognise that in Gilbert because he's got that same quality, is there's an emotion that drives that. Whereas with Usman, because he's there to compete,
it's just cold.
It's cold.
It's just cold.
And when they faced off, when he was having his name announced, he walked together, squared off against him. Then they backed up, and then they kind of came forward, both crouched over. Yeah. And Burns offered his fist, and Usman just backed up.
It's business.
Cold. When it cuts back to Burns in his corner, I think he was upset. I think he was upset by that. It was like, I know we're here to fight, but It's like like the benefit of being emotional and that making you want to fight also makes that emotional because it makes you want to like bond and be connected with your teammates.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because then if you watch Burns come out immediately, the first thing he does is he's like, all right, motherfucker. And he tees up a big right hand.
Yeah.
As if to like kind of get him over it. And what you were saying about the difference in emotion, when Burns landed that shot, so it hit him kind of here. So like a bit on the ear, a bit on the temple. He put his hands down straight away, so he wasn't concussed. He was dazed. It knocked his equilibrium out. The first thing that Burns did was he ran in and he went for a hammer fist and hammer fisted him across the back of the head. Fortunately for Usman, he was already in a position to shoot in. But as soon as that had happened, Usman went back to stance.
Because composure, innit? It was just composure.
It was really nice.
It was almost as if he had played that possibility out in his head, and he knew what knew what he was going to do if that had happened to him. If I do get caught like this is what I'm going to do, and he just played that out. It was, it's beautiful. And composure it's a intangible skill that you can't put a number on it. I can't tell you're a 53 at composure, but it's so important.
Yeah.
That being able to pick the right direction under vast amounts of pressure is, it's intangible, but it's so important. Yeah, very, very impressed.
It's awesome.
And he's undeniable. He's the record holder now. He's going after Anderson. I don't know. I mean, he's fired up about Gamebred, isn't he? He's going after him, and
Gamebred set him up perfectly, though, hasn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, he's set him up perfectly. I could relate it. I could give you a perfect political analogy, but I won't, just so we stay focused on the sport. But basically, he kind of like Masvidal set the stage for him to lose by not having a full training camp.
Yeah.
So he's always got that. Yeah, but I didn't have a full training camp catch, which has now started to play into Usman's hands because now he's started to sow that seed of doubt, and people are now starting to buy in it. Where in actuality, I think Masvidal was in pretty decent shape for that. He still fought for 5 rounds. He was just beaten.
Yeah.
The fight is the winner of Leon Covington. That's the fight that has to happen, and that would either validate Covington as a challenger and has got to do something different, and plus there's the narrative and the drama about the stoppage, and we'll get Goddard in there to referee again, and Conor sitting on the fence, and I can imagine all kinds of fun scenarios. Or you go the opposite way and Leon beats Covington, in which case he would have to prove that he's either durable, he's got take down the fence, or he can hang on the ground, and that's a narrative.
I just want to see Leon fight. I just want to see him fight, and for it not to fall apart.
But he's within striking distance now. Usman's find himself in a place where he's beating everybody in the he's beating everybody in the top. What is it, 6 aside from Chiesa, and I would say Chiesa needs another win now.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I like Chiesa. I like who he's becoming as a fighter. I'm not sure he poses
just
him.
Not there, right?
Yeah, just not quite right.
No, I mean he's ranked 6th at the moment. But like, if you get say Chiesa to fight, this is why Thompson's calling people out above him now, because he's realising there's some sharks on the way up this division,
Right.
And Bilal Muhammad being one of them, and Vicente Luque being another. Like Chiesa's hot on the top 5 heels, and he could quite easily replace any of those. And given the fact that he's the only one that's not got a loss to Usman on his record, I mean Thompson as well.
I mean, that's going to be a rough turnaround for Gilbert. Physically, I think probably it will be a relatively easy get up from that, but emotionally I think that's going to take a little bit. He would probably, as long as he's injury free, be wise to try and get back in there relatively soon, and get back on the wagon. And it just
seemed like a superficial.
I wouldn't imagine there was too.
He was dropped. Like when he was dropped with that jab, he was hurt because he didn't respond to the first punch that landed on the way down.
That was a shot, wasn't it?
It was.
That was a beautiful shot. Yeah. Well done, Kamaru. He probably proved a few people wrong, and he's a deserved champ. And people are struggling to get anywhere near him, aren't they?
Yeah, I want to see him against Khabib now. That's the challenge for Khabib, or do a catchweight 162. The problem is they're both managed by the same person, aren't they? That won't happen. And the other thing as well, did you see the Usman got 600,000 and Khabib got 6 million?
Yeah. Missing a note off
and
there.
Same manager. So, yeah.
It's an awkward conversation.
Yeah, right.
We're 8 minutes over.
Right.
Unfortunately.
We're not 8 minutes over. We're 20 minutes late.
Here we go.
Okay. Oh, I need to get on to the next card.
So,
where are we?
the Picks Show.
Oh, yeah. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Picks Show for this weekend's card between Curtis Blaydes and Derrick Lewis. And there's some fun fights on the card, and there's loads of fun names for Ollie to try and pronounce.
This is going to be...
He's been trying to slyly get me to help him pronounce some of these names, which obviously I've been smart enough
We have a trust issue that you're just telling me the wrong names to make me look stupid.
It's not a trust issue. You can be trusting that I am doing it.
So,
go on then.
I mean, the main event's obviously going to be fun, but there's a lot of fun fights all the way through this card.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have to keep this rolling because there are some I want to kind of dwell on a bit more, and others that we can skip over a bit quicker.
Spivac,
Vanderaa.
Spivac, and Vanderaa.
I'm excited for this one, and I know why they put it as the first fight of the night, because the way that they both fight, Vanderaa's I mean, he could have been
hilarious.
He could have been a linebacker or a hockey goon, or you know what I mean, anything like
enforcer
that.
On the ice,
all of that. He could have done all of those jobs.
Absolutely.
And he's got this he's got this real kind of instinctive way of fighting. Like, you can tell he's got some wrestling background, but he only uses it to put him in a better place, to keep clubbing him in the head. Just. He's like what's his name off Nelson off Simpsons. That's what he reminds me of.
So he's wrestling. So he's at Team Quest, isn't he?
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, I think so. So that's probably why his wrestling is as good as it is. But yeah, you're right. He uses it for a reason.
Yeah,
he's not wrestling you to wrestle you.
No,
he's wrestling you to put in a position where he can whack you in the face.
Happy to walk you down.
He's hilarious. I've loved a couple of interviews he's done, and again, he almost interviews like he fights. He's just deadpan. There's no frills to it. He's telling you exactly what he's thinking.
Yeah.
He called out Spivac because on the regional circuit he dodged him apparently. He just came straight out with it in the press conference after one of the Contender Series fights.
I wonder when that was then. Because this has been remade, hasn't it? This was supposed to be the end of last year.
Yeah.
And this has been reorganised.
It's very nice matchmaking.
Yeah,
it's very, very nice matchmaking.
Spivac's got good striking.
Yeah.
He's got a long stance, and he's got that allows him to throw good low kicks. But he's also got wicked hip throws.
Yes.
And Vanderaa doesn't mind closing distance, and he's quite upright anyway. Walks himself into range. You can see Spivac just launching him, and then Vanderaa wrestling out.
Tuivasa hip toss Tuivasa.
Oh, that was beautiful.
And he's a big dude to be hip tossing.
He is a big dude.
And then head and arm choked him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Drowned him in his own blood, pretty much.
Yeah.
Just beat him up to the point where he was just so uncomfortable on the floor. You could see him trying to get out.
It's a perfect nickname, the polar bear. That's exactly what he sort of looks like. I think I'll go with Vanderaa.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, I think so. I think he. Well, I sort of biased. I sort of like him.
Yeah,
I think
that's it.
I sort of like him, but I think he's very strong.
Welcome to the UFC popularity contest.
Yeah. I'll give you a little bit to back it. He's very strong. He's got, obviously he's got solid wrestling fundamentals. He can clearly bang. I think he'll just overpower him a little bit. Yeah.
Let me. I'm gonna get the stats page up and see if I can pull these fights up.
Norwegian descent, I think.
Yeah, he looks like a Viking. For sure, he looks like a Viking
head.
But then again, Spivac looks terrifying as well. He's meant to be a fighter. You can tell.
I wonder if he shaved a polar bear down. If that's what it looks like.
Maybe that's what he is. Dude. There's literally. Well, this is kind of interesting. So 11-2, 11-4. So Vanderaa's got a couple extra losses on his record. 6'3" to 6'4". Both 260 pounds, both orthodox.
Very similar.
Like 3 years apart in age, 2 inches in difference. Sergey's average fight time is 9:46. Vanderaa's average fight time is 3:34. And he's got double strikes landed per minute. He's got more takedown averages per 15 minutes. Takedown accuracy is 100%, although that's obviously based on one UFC fight. But
no, I like him. I think he can.
He's going to be a fun one. What's the rest of his record saying? Because obviously that's based on That's based on one fight. So you're going with Vanderaa, are you?
Definitely going with Vanderaa, yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to do a bit more research on him and then.
Are you done with that? Are you doing the more research on him now?
I'm just
in
podcast
in, or
no. We'll stop there. We'll stop later. No, I'll pick that up later. I'm just all of a sudden I'm just very much interested in him again. I want to see a bit more about his record. I'll watch some of his older fights later. Zahabi against Draco Rodriguez.
Yeah, it's got a bit of a technician versus athlete feel to it. Ayman is, you would hope so, bearing in mind who he's related to, very technically proficient, does everything pretty much how you're supposed to do it. Tactical understanding. A couple of fights I've seen him produce performances where he looks like tactically he's in the know, and he's manipulating his opponent. He doesn't seem very athletic. He seems like if he wasn't doing this, he's probably not picking up any other sport. He wouldn't. If he wasn't doing this, he's not playing American football, or he's maybe ice hockey. But he got hit so cleanly with a spinning elbow with Ramos. Yeah. You could see him lying on the floor with his jaw dislocated. It was horrible to watch. Unless you were Ramos, and I guess it was fun to watch. But yeah, I mean that's my take on it. It's an athlete versus a technician. It'll be interesting to see if Zahabi can handle Rodriguez's power, because he's very, very athletic. He was a handful on that Dana White Contender Series.
That transition from the omoplata attack to the triangle that he ended up finishing with, and his adjustments and the corrections that he made in the triangle, he had to battle through it, but he was very impressive. Zahabi is just incredibly well-rounded. That's like, I remember going up to train with GSP, and this was, I think, maybe even before Ayman had started fighting professionally, and he was already coaching on the mats alongside. Like he was working, especially with grappling skills, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Like he was coaching and working alongside a whole bunch of UFC veterans, and the level up there has always been very high.
The beauty of those camps with all of those high level guys in is like an osmosis effect. Is you can't help but you could just sit in there for a few months and you'd come out a better fighter with a better understanding.
And being able to just kind of be on the mat and just watch and study and share information as well, without having the pressure of having to be in there performing yourself. It was much more of a learning environment for him than a testing environment. So then when he did step up and start to fight, he was just very, very, very technical. He's far more mature than his record shows, I would say.
What is he, 7-2? He's 1-2 in the UFC.
Yeah. But there's a 9-year age difference. And Ayman, you can guarantee most of those 9 years will have been spent studying martial arts. So their records, even though they're very similar, their understanding of the game is probably quite different. But then you would think that Rodriguez makes up for that lack of experience with that athleticism that we saw in that first fight.
I'm going to go against what you would expect me to go for. And I'm going to go on the side of the technical.
Wow.
I'll go on the side of the technician over the athlete, I think. And that's part of me hopes as well, because I'd like to see Ayman get a win here.
Yeah.
And obviously a win for the technician as well. I think he can do that.
Plus, the thing is, Ayman really, with the knowledge that he's got and the ability that he's got, he should have more fights on his record, and he should be contending higher up in this division. Rodriguez is still young. He's not going to lose anything by picking up a loss here to Zahabi. So it's there's also a benefit in Zahabi picking up a win here as well. But Rodriguez might just be streaking at the moment. He might just be... I mean, that... Honestly, I don't want to feel like I'm underestimating his technical ability, because the transition from defense to attack was really nice. And obviously we know he's got good striking skills as well. Yeah. So you're going with Ayman, are you?
We'll go with it. We'll go with Zahabi, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Skelly.
Yep.
Skelly against Jamal Emmers.
Chas Skelly's been fighting for a long time. A long time. 2009, I think he started. Right? Took a whole year off in 2018, sorting out a few problems, I think, a few physical problems. He seems to probably struggle with that top echelon. But other than that, he's really accumulated some good experience throughout that sort of mid-tier, of the sport.
Skelly was one of the guys recruited that Team Takedown project.
Wow, okay.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
There was someone who had a whole bunch of money, who was really into wrestling, and decided to make a team of high level wrestlers that were crossing over into MMA, kind of like a new level Hammer House. And they had him. They had a few guys. Jared Rochold was one of them as well. Like really high level collegiate wrestlers that had kind of come to the end of their wrestling careers and needed somewhere else. I'm sure Skelly is one of those guys. You look at his record as well. Like, I mean, where was he before he got beaten? He was 10-0 when he got signed with the UFC, picking up wins in Bellator. And he was like knee barring people and Darce choking people. And then he lost to Bektic by majority decision. Then he went on another 4-fight win streak. Then he lost to Elkins by decision. He's got a pretty storied career.
Yeah, like I said, he's accumulated a lot of experience, and that pays. I just feel like he may be. I don't know whether that top is where he's going to end up, and he might just be a good club man for the sport. I don't know a lot about Jamal Emmers, to be honest, but he did. He came off worse against Chikadze. But it was a split decision, and he hung in there, and it was pretty, it was pretty close, and that's no joke.
No.
To go to a split decision with Chikadze, he's a legit contender, I think.
Like his movement and his confidence in his striking really impressed me in that fight. And sometimes I'll do this. I'll watch a couple of minutes. I'll watch the first 2 minutes of the first round, the last 3 minutes of the last round, to kind of gauge where the feeling is different. And in the first round, although obviously he knew what he was up against with Chikadze, it wasn't like he was timid and kind of like unsure of where his opportunities were. But as the fight progressed and Chikadze got that swelling under his eye, you just saw Emmers just start to come on a bit, and then his hands started to come down a bit, and he's styling. And I think he's a very interesting fighter, and I think he's going to be a real handful for Chaz Skelly, who probably doesn't want to deal with him at range for too long. Because Skelly's a little bit kind of awkward and not quite as comfortable on his feet. Yeah,
his striking's significantly more remedial than Emmers, isn't it?
Yeah.
But he is a good, solid wrestler. So obviously he will have recognised that and identified that, and I'm sure that's part of his game plan. I think I'd like Emmers to get a win here. I'd like him to get going, and I think I'll probably lock him in.
All right. So far we've got, hang on a minute, let me just review. So you've gone Vanderaa, Zahabi, Emmers. Now we're on to Shayna Dobson against Casey O'Neill.
Yeah. Again, I don't know a massive amount about these two. Casey, I couldn't find too much footage on her, but she seemed to move really nicely. She's got quite crisp striking. Doesn't seem particularly powerful, but does seem quite crisp. She's on debut in the UFC, but she is coming off 5-0, so she's in good confidence. But it's different, isn't it?
It is, and that's where Shayna Dobson's already kind of turned that corner. I think, like when she came into the UFC, so she came through Ultimate Fighter 26, but then she picked up 3 losses in a row, 2 decisions, and then lost 40-second uppercut. But then that last fight that she had against Agapova, yeah. I mean, she was a massive underdog going into that. She was 3-4 against her opponent who was 9-1, and her opponent was just so confident. She was just like, "This is just going to be a walk in the park. Yeah. Wait till you see what I can do."
There's your first mistake.
Yeah, and she looked great. So like, sometimes you have those fighters, they kind of stagger a bit in their early career and then they take off.
Find the flow, yeah.
Like she's got the movement, she's got the striking power and the understanding of the grappling ranges.
I mean, five fights within the UFC is almost 10 fights outside of the UFC. You know what I mean? You're at the big show now, all the pressure, all the build up, the lights, and obviously not the crowds so much at the minute, but I think that experience from Shayna might pay. Yeah.
Like just being comfortable in the octagon.
And everything that goes with it. It's not just a fight. We've touched on it many times. It's not just a fight. Half the time the fight's the relieving bit. It's everything else that goes with it. Yeah, I think Shayna Dobson might get another one here.
Just before you say that, I will say the most likely thing is that Casey O'Neill's going to come out take her down and take her back and choke her out in probably 60 seconds. But I'm just throwing that out there. For,
we'll see, won't we?
No,
So are you making a pick, or are you playing devil's advocate?
I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Okay, right.
I'm just saying. But like, so Casey, she had a rough start to her amateur career. Picked up 2 losses in a row, but then she got 5 wins and then turned pro, and now she's on a 5-fight win streak as a pro as well. So like, she may have already had those couple of rough fights. I mean, I'm not saying obviously it's UFC level, but sometimes fighters they ride their own hype into their UFC debut.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately it's about belief in yourself anyway, isn't it? So whether or not you believe 5 fights outside of it is worth 10 or not, it's about what do you believe in yourself. And if you can bring that, if you can bring that flow into the UFC, then plenty of people have done it. It's not like every debutant in the UFC loses.
Right, we should rattle through some of these because I want to talk a lot about some of these fights on the main card. Alves against Sabitini.
Yeah.
Couldn't find much on Sabatini aside from loads and loads of grappling.
I mean, he seems like a very accomplished grappler, right?
Yeah.
And Alves seems to have some grappling, not necessarily at the same level. His striking seems a little bit laborious. It wasn't particularly crisp. I think on limited information, I'm probably going to pick Sabatini.
Yeah.
Probably by submission.
Yeah. He did. I mean, he looked so confident in the matches that I watched him grappling. Like he was just eating through the competition and had several clear paths of this is the takedown I'm using to this position and then this submission. And it wasn't the same one each time. It wasn't like he's a rear naked choke guy. It was varieties of different ways and also abilities to recover from bad positions quite well. He's kind of short and compact. He's got really good butterfly hooks. I think he might have a great debut. But I mean, Alves, he's got that first fight in the Octagon, hasn't he? Was it Contender Series?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and he seems to have some. He does seem to have some power in his striking. It's just as we've mentioned many times, that power's no good unless you can find a home for it.
Yeah.
And it didn't seem like it was particularly accomplished in the striking arts.
So basically, Sabatini's just got to pass guard as he's taking him down and trying to get corner.
Potentially, and for sure, he's not going to stop trying to get a sub because that's his thing, and he goes hard after it.
We've got a couple of veterans in this next one, haven't we? Landwr against Erosa. Erosa's been around for ages. Wasn't he on one of the Ultimate Fighters years ago? So he's back in the UFC with a Darce choke win over Sean Woodson.
I think he could tempt Nate into making a bit of a mistake because Nate gets angry.
He does get angry.
And he gets wild. And I just wonder... my initial thoughts is Nate is probably slightly more skilled and probably a slightly better fighter. But if Erosa is sneaky and can lure him into getting wild, getting loose, then maybe he can grab the win there.
Yeah. Erosa does tend to give odd looks to his opponents as well. And what is he, 24-8 compared to 14-3. Like, you get a lot of different looks from Erosa. He's been around for a long time, in and out of the UFC. He's fought over the world. M1 Challenge,
even that
Cage Warriors.
Even that is a tough road that bulletproofs you a little bit because you've been in, you've had a shot, you've been let go, you've come back in. All of that is rounding you off as a human and a fighter. It shows some resilience that he's done what he needs to do to fight his way back into the big show.
Yeah.
But I mean, Nate's very athletic and very tough, and I wonder how effective he can be.
The question is, how good is his sub defense? That's the question. Because if Erosa's going to win, he just tends to, my memories of him, I'm thinking back to like previous versions of him that I've seen, and I just always remember himself. He leaves himself vulnerable to kind of coax his opponent into attacking him, and then he tries to counter with his like hooks and.
Yeah, but maybe Nate will take the bait then. Yeah,
but it might benefit. Landwr to be too cautious of his ground game and not want to engage him there, and just stick to a good fundamental boxing game because you can only slip so far until you find yourself up against the fence.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah. Let's go with Erosa on experience.
Really? Again, he's going with some of the veterans today.
Yeah.
You can see why the full reptile picks get nowhere.
Why do you keep saying that? We're mid-table.
Mid-table.
All right.
Out of 2 events.
Out of 3 events.
3 events.
Mid-table. All right. We're just holding position, ready to make a run for the title.
Wineland Castaneda. Yeah, Wineland's one of my favourites.
How can you not like him?
I know.
Do you know what I mean? Like, he's got a sick moustache for a start.
Yeah.
I
call his style the gunslinger.
Absolutely, the gunslinger.
Like, hands down. He's like, who's going to go down first? Who draws first?
He's 24 and 14. He has been around. He's got a huge amount of experience. I don't know how you can not sort of like him. You can't not like watching him fight. He's pretty inconsistent. I guess that's the nature of the way he fights. You know what I mean? If you're going to fight as a gunslinger, sometimes
same as Cub Swanson.
You're going to get shot.
Cub Swanson's got the same kind of style, same kind of posture, hands down. It's a do or die kind of fighting style. But we like it because it's fun to watch.
Yeah.
But there are 14 losses on his record at the same time. Like,
but
he does
maybe
pay for
that's
it.
maybe that's just part of it. That's part of the game. If you're going to play that character, that's the record you end up with.
Yeah. I just look at this and I look down the records and I go, yeah, okay, look, Wineland's a big risk taker. He's hands down. He's a high risk kind of fighter. But the times that he's lost are to good fighters. I mean, O'Malley caught him clean from a real distance. That was a beautiful finish. But then you go back a bit further, and then he's fighting guys like Dobson and Caraway and Barao and Benavidez and Faber.
That's all in the tank. That's all logged.
Yeah. And he's also beating guys like Jorgensen and Pickett and Frankie Saenz, Mizugaki. It's a gunslinger style, but he's swimming in a pool that I don't feel like Castaneda's been swimming in.
I thought Eddie versus Popov was interesting because Popov just had no respect for him at all, and basically Eddie just kicked and kneed some respect into him, and really, really turned the tide in that fight. Landed 6 or 7 huge right hands and just put him away. It was fun to watch the sort of arrogance and disrespect, and then it literally got kicked into him.
So I'm going to be surprised if you go for Castaneda after you chose Erosa.
Yeah, hold on.
There's a theme to these picks.
Hear me out. So I've chosen Castaneda.
Of course you have.
Just to be awkward, really, more than anything.
He just does the opposite of what
just to be awkward. Well, based off, I rate Nathaniel Wood.
We're still recording, Amy. We're all good.
To know.
I'm gonna check the phone. You can
I rate Nathaniel Wood. I think he's a great, obviously UK-based fighter. He's very crisp. He's got really nice, varied striking, and I just thought Castaneda did really well against him. He's very tough. He's very durable. He went to war with Leiloha.
Yeah,
Leiloha on the Contender Series. He sort of proved that he can get in there. He's going to get in there and he can slug it out with Wineland.
Yeah,
for sure. And he just got my respect in that Nathaniel Wood fight.
Is slugging it out with Wineland a good idea though? That's my concern, is that he might stand and slug it out with Wineland.
Yeah,
and I think the way you beat Wineland is to stay outside of the slugging range. And
I mean, it's just tough with Wineland. You're not sure because
it's tough.
that was a very disrespectful. It's tough.
You just picked Julian Erosa over Landwr.
Mate, listen, mate. I'm making picks. You don't even make picks. So
that's how we work this. You make picks for both of us, but I expect you to make educated picks.
Yeah.
I
can roll the dice every now and again.
Hey, you didn't know what to wear before I started making.
I didn't even turn the mic on. We didn't get off to a good start today.
So you going with Castaneda, are you?
Yeah, I like him, and I think I think it's going to be a great fight.
Yeah,
that's probably one of the fights of the card.
It's that one, or hang on a minute, are we in the right order?
Or the next one.
I was about to say this one or the next one.
Yeah,
this one or the next one. Right,
hear me out about Luis Pena.
Go on then.
So we've talked about this previously. Under the lens or through the lens of Lessons of War.
Yeah.
So you learn the components of what it takes to compete in mixed martial arts. You learn how they fit together. then you learn how they fit together for you, and then you learn how they fit together depending on who your opponent is. So there's a flow of accumulating skill sets. And I feel like Pena is a huge handful. He's a huge dude and he's a massive handful. He's got a really nice selection of skills. I'm not quite sure he's all the way through that flow, and when he does, he's going to be a problem. I feel like he has great fundamentals. He understands all the parts of it. I think he's starting to understand how that fits together for him, because he's a different shape to most people in that division. I just don't think he's still developing. If we talk about that as a continuum, he's still developing on that continuum, and it will be fascinating to see where he gets to, because I just genuinely think he can be a big problem for a lot of people. He had a scrap with Vola.
Yeah, he did.
Didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
In a fight that you would just, if you had to put a fight next to Matt Vola, that's probably the fight you would put next to him.
2 split decisions as well in the UFC. I mean, a guillotine loss in the 3rd round to Worthy.
Yeah.
My concern, I agree with everything you said. My concern is that he's not turned that corner in time to fight Drakkar Klose. Because, Drakkar Klose, there's nothing particularly stand out about his game, but again, we talk about which pools they've been swimming in. I would say he's been swimming in a slightly deeper pool with bigger fish.
Yeah, he's very, very impressive against Vanderaa, wasn't he? Very impressive.
Vanderaa, Giagos and Bobby Green are all tough fights as well. I mean, look at the records on those guys. Bobby Green, 24.
He gets reckless though.
70. Yeah, he
does get reckless. Like you can almost prod his ego, and he'll come out swinging.
But then if he does get reckless in this fight, how does Pena make him pay?
Yeah, he doesn't have that sit down and catch him with a straight as you're coming in being too reckless.
It's that pipe cleaner power. He's got to accumulate punches at a distance. Bap, 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 bap. And Drakkar Klose is one of those guys that he's got that confidence to just close distance with fists.
Yeah, but
especially if he knows someone can.
He's been 7 decisions in a row though. It's not like he's got some power and he's finding a home for it and he's putting people away, is he?
But he throws with the intention. And then again, if you look at the guys he's fighting, like Bobby Green, Mark Giacchese are not easy to hit. Lando Venata's not easy to hit.
Yeah.
Christos Giagos is easier to hit, and that was a unanimous decision. Beneil Dariush is very difficult to deal with.
I thought Dariush punished him for being reckless. I thought, I don't know if you've ever watched.
See, but Violent Bob Ross could do that to him.
Yeah.
But he would need to accumulate over time. Like Dariush put him out in the 2nd round. I don't think Pena can do that to him.
But yeah, I thought Klose was turning that fight, and he got reckless and he got punished for it. I don't know if you've ever watched poker on TV where they're showing you the odds of each of the hands. Obviously, the players can't see it, but I thought he played those cards poorly, and he got dragged into that, and he got punished. He didn't need to do that.
I think Pena could cause him a lot of problems, but it would have to be over the distance, and it would have to be picking him off and tying him up. I mean, there's submission opportunities against him, but again, Drakkar Klose has got a physicality that I don't think Pena's got.
Yeah,
Pena's got an awkward.
Completely agree. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like,
he can wrap you up. What was that submission that he had somebody in? He had somebody in a submission. He could not for the life of him finish it.
Yeah,
and he was frustrated with it. It was frustrating. I can't remember which fight it was now. I remember his post-fight interview, and he was just like, that was just not a good performance from me. But I don't know whether it was necessarily because he was doing anything wrong. I just don't think he was applying the right skill in the right moment necessarily.
I know this is a replacement, right? Pena's dropped in as a replacement.
Yeah.
And when I initially saw it, I thought, that's great matchmaking again. But I know, obviously it's a replacement. It's good that Pena's happy to jump in on short notice.
So which way are you going then? Because you've sold Pena now, you can't really.
No, I do really. The other thing to throw in the mix is, well, 2 things actually. To beat Klose, this goes against Pena, but to beat Klose, I feel like you need to whack him early and get his respect. Otherwise, he's going to walk you down. He's not going to respect you, and he's going to do some damage. Which I'm not sure. I don't know whether Pena can do that or not. I don't know whether it possesses the power. Like you said, he might be able to pick it in, but I'm not sure whether that's going to get his respect quick enough.
I mean, if he kept tying Drakkar close up every time Klose stepped in to strike, instead of backing up, if he smothered it and tied him up and start working elbows and knees, that could be a good route to victory. Because I don't think Drakkar Klose is going to want to take him down, not unless he feels like he can do it up against the fence to cramp him and ground.
I'd be surprised if he was sort of taken aback by that aggressive nature of Klose, someone coming at him, because he's fought Matt Favola, and that's exactly what Matt did to him.
Yeah,
and he dealt with that. He dealt with that pretty good. I think after talking Pena up, I better pick him. I want to pick him, but again, it's, the last two fights we've talked about, they're standout fights on this card, really, and they're going to be great to watch. We'll go Pena on.
Yeah.
Hope that he's.
Hope.
This is.
Oh no, that was it. Pena on
hope. Hitting hope. Lock him in.
Okay.
I think he's going to develop. I think he's going to develop into a handful. Like you said, I'm not sure whether he's done that yet or whether this is his time. But I think in a couple of years, he's going to be difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The right losses sometimes spur that along.
Yeah, maybe.
So, last fight on the prelims, right? Jared Gordon against Danny Chavez.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another rock'em sock'em, really. Yeah. Chavez has got some good clinch work, wrestling transitions. He's got a good kick off the back leg as well.
Horrible kick off the back leg, hasn't he? Yeah. 4-fight win streak.
Yeah.
This is his second fight in the UFC, I think. Yeah.
So he's 11.
He's fast. I don't know if he's got a taekwondo background or karate background or something, but he shapes up in that stance a little bit. He's very fast. He's like mean. Like he hits. Like everything is in those shots. He hits to hurt people.
So he's got 2 losses by decision over 3 rounds, and then he's got 1 loss by guillotine at 2:32 of the 5th round. So conditioning wise, over 3 rounds, he looks pretty good. He can get outpointed, but then he's got some good decision wins on his record as losses.
Yeah.
Few first round knockouts, head kick knockout halfway through a first round. It's that rear leg. He's definitely got a taekwondo style into it, but he doesn't stand side on like a lot of fighters.
He's just wide. He's wide. He's not side on, is he? But he's still wide and slightly squarer. He's out of Colby's team, isn't he?
Oh, is he?
I think so. MMA Masters, I think he's out of.
Okay.
But I mean, Gordon's no joke. I know he's sort of 6-3.
Yeah.
By KOs or TKOs. If he can find a way to deal with that speed from Chavez, I think he's going to be all right. I think he can go well. He nearly got his leg ripped off against Silva. See, right towards the end of the round, I think he dropped into a knee bar and had it on tight. I could see his hamstrings like screaming, and then the bell rang and got him out of there. But if that bell hadn't rang, I think that he'd have been done.
Yeah.
I couldn't see him getting out of that. It was far too far gone.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been knocked out by Oliveira, but
who hasn't?
Yeah.
He's stopping lots of people now.
I don't think it'll be a toughness thing. I think he's tough enough to win this fight. I think Chavez will beat him for speed. I think he's just got that edge of speed on him.
Gordon is a little bit front foot boxing, perhaps a little bit too predictable. If he can close distance down and force Chavez back against the fence, maybe nullify that back leg.
If he's heavy on that front leg though, and he starts getting that kicked out from under him, it's going to be a short night, isn't it?
Yeah. Which way you go?
Chavez.
Yeah.
I think so. I think honestly, I just think he'll beat him for a bit of speed.
Yeah, a bit faster, better footwork, better mobility.
Yeah.
I kind of felt like that when I was watching it. Right, main card, kicking off. This is a bit of a heavyweight extravaganza, isn't it? We've got Spivac, Vanderaa kicking off the prelims, and then we've got Arlovski, Aspinall, Olinek against Daukaus, and Blaydes against Lewis, all on the main card.
Have we not got Imavov versus Hawes? Have we missed that?
I have Arlovski, Aspinall next, and then Hawes, Imavov after that.
The Arlovski Aspinall fight reminds me of our conversation about Overeem, in that you go through his list and it is just name after name after name. It's like 3 swipes down on your iPad to get to the bottom of his record. Debuted in the year 2000.
Mate, I know. Was that UFC
what is he
6
doing?
then? Yeah.
Yeah, he's been through like the three sort of clear cycles of the UFC, sort of pre-tough, when it was just a free-for-all pretty much. Mm-hmm. Then he was in that tough era, and now he's in this sort of era that I think is the mainstream era. Like the UFC is mainstream now. Yeah. It's done it. It's done what it needed to do, and he's been there through the whole thing.
And he's always been like back in the day when Arlovski came in. The fight that stands out in my mind is when he was in his Wham era, when he fought Paul Buentello.
Gorgeous mullet.
It was like, I remember watching that fight, and like nobody knew what had happened, because he stepped in, he was so fast, and he nailed Buentello so cleanly with the right hand that he actually went underneath Buentello, and Buentello just fell unconscious onto his back. And then as he stepped away, Buentello hit the deck, and everyone's like, "Oh, what happened?" Then you watch the replay, and you see this clean punch land, and Buentello just...
He's still fast.
Very fast.
He's still fast. Yeah. And speed, in terms of physical characteristics, speed will drop off. You just don't move as fast as you used to move. And he's still fast.
Still quick.
I watched his fight with Boza last night, and it was sort of counter-striker on counter-striker, weren't it? It was almost like, who's going to lose their patience first? And, the old dog just stayed true, and he punches very straight and very fast. And he's still got power in those hands.
The one thing that we've not seen in a long time is what he looks like on the ground. Because like back in the day, like the old Frank Mir days, he was a leg lock guy, wasn't he? Like, who was the last person he leg locked? It's been a while now, but he was like, I'm sure he must be a handful on the ground as well. We just don't see it. But it's like that. It's like that applying of, Achilles lock against Tim Sylvia back in the day. Like he was always the athlete amongst the heavyweights, wasn't he? He was always like the guy that looked like a middleweight in build and condition, but
he's sort of framed. His frame is heavyweight, but he's not like thick like some of the heavyweights now.
Yeah, and he's got that lovely throws your right hand and then swipes back. One of my favourite heavyweight fights ever is him against Travis Brown, where they were friends going into it, and it was like they're lined up to fight. And he threw this right hand and it missed him. Travis Brown drifted away. And as Brown stepped in to try and club him back, he just came back with a hammer fist. And he started using this like hook and swipe, which works really well.
You know what I miss?
Eh?
I miss the roll necks and the big gold chains. That's what I miss. That was my favourite Arlovski.
I remember back in the day there was a countdown show.
Yeah, I think we're thinking the same thing. Yeah.
And it was like everybody else is like you got Rich Franklin on a treadmill in the basement of his house, and Vanderaa like he's on an airdyne with a snorkel taped to his face and shit, and then it cuts over to Arlovski and he's like shopping for suits.
Yeah, that's exactly what he was doing, getting out of a BMW shopping for suits, gold and a turtleneck. Yeah. I missed that. That's the Arlovski I want to see.
Gangster.
So
what's his record now? 30-19 against Tom Aspinall, who's 9-2.
Yeah, and not a 9-2 that is anywhere near that level.
No, not at all.
I think you'd have a better insight, but going through Tom's record, it looked to me like he probably struggles to get fights domestically.
That's one of the reasons why he signed.
Yeah, there just isn't those. He's 6'5".
Struggles to find training partners, I bet.
Yeah.
Let alone opponents.
Yeah, I mean, anyone that's that size from that area of the country is playing rugby league. So they're not fighting. They're playing rugby of some sort. Yeah. That's exactly what I thought when I looked through. Just the class of opponent these fought didn't seem great to me, and he did dispatch them pretty easily.
This is the thing, isn't it? It's like
now you're in.
Everyone else has been too easy.
Arlovski.
Yeah.
Cheers.
But then again,
his idea was this.
Yeah, I mean that might not be the case though. It might be too easy, manageable. Yeah. Now I'm ready for top 10.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of like. I mean, I suppose that was the test with Tanabosa, which was a good performance from Arlovski that kind of slowed the rising tide down. Same with Philip Lins. Like he's come off 2 wins that are perfect performances for someone like Tom Aspinall.
Yeah, I agree. And I was thinking for Arlovski to win this, if he just did what he did against Bosa, that's a pretty easy, not easy, sorry. That's a route to victory you can see happening. Yeah, it's tough. I don't want to bet against Tom really. He's a big BJJ black belt from England with pro boxing.
Been training with Tyson Fury as well.
Yeah,
he's been sparring with.
Like
Tyson
he's got all the bits. I
Yeah.
just worry that this is I tell you what, I worry it's a step too far too quickly. But he wins this fight, and that puts a rocket under his career, doesn't it? What a name to put on your resume.
Yeah, same as Rosenstruck Gann, isn't it? Like they're both in situations where they've got, far fewer fights than most heavyweights that have been around for years, but there's kind of nobody else for them to fight.
If he rushes this, I think the fact that it's Arlovski might stop him doing this. But if he rushes this and goes in there and doesn't take his time, I think he could very legitimately get caught by Arlovski. But if he's just a little bit pragmatic about it, takes his time, sets everything up, don't get caught in the traps that Arlovski's going to lay in terms of waiting for him to strike and then counter him, then I think Tom can win this. And obviously, I want him to win this. It's important for the heavyweight scene in the UK. Really, we need someone in there that is going to aspire other guys at that size to come over to the sport and see what they can do.
He's definitely capable. I mean, with the ease at which he's gone through the competition so far, he's definitely capable, and his UFC fights so far, he's been disappointed afterwards because he was like, that was not what I wanted.
Yeah,
he has a high standard for himself, but then it's difficult to reach that high standard when you're struggling for opposition. What's crazy, I was just having a quick look at the rankings. Andre Arlovski isn't in the top 15 anymore.
No.
That's crazy, isn't it? It must be the first time in about 400 years.
Yeah, he's had he's rented a space for long enough up there, isn't he?
Yeah, right. He's got his own parking space, hasn't he?
Let's go with Tom Aspinall, because it's important for our domestic scene that we have a heavyweight that is knocking out or winning fights against a legend like Arlovski, because Arlovski is he's a bona fide legend, isn't he?
He is a bona fide legend.
Ironically, he's one of those. He's at that stage where you don't actually want to see him lose, really, do you? It's a bit like when Frankie gets knocked out or Overeem gets hurt. You don't really want to see it. You feel like they, that shouldn't happen to them almost. But let's get our big Salford boy in there and winning some fights.
All right. Okay, this is going to be
amazing,
a wild first round.
Amazing.
And then
if you said Russian wrestler and then you had to draw a picture, what would it look like?
Are we talking about the same one? Nasi Imavov?
No.
Which one are you talking about?
I've moved on to Olinek. Go backwards.
You jumped.
Yeah. It's because you had it in the wrong order, I think.
I've got the official UFC fight card in front of me.
I know, but that's always all over the place.
It does say all bouts live and subject to change.
There you go.
Phil Hawes against Imavov. I've got next.
Yeah.
This is, like I said, this is going to be a wild first round.
Phil Hawes is 185 pounds. And 150 of those pounds are in his quads.
yeah.
He is, he's a mountain of a man, isn't he?
He's a physical specimen, isn't he? But he does pay for that with his gas tank.
Very much so.
That's where we've seen him struggle in the past. I mean, Martinez, we were talking about Julian Martinez a little while ago, came through a really rough first round and was able to turn it around based on the lack of ability to compete. But then that last fight against Malkoun was like a gunshot to the face.
Yeah, wasn't it?
Yeah,
wasn't it? And he's had it rough, Phil Hawes, isn't he? He's been in and out, and he's had to.
He just had such a high standard set because he was
do tough and the Contender Series. Did he? Tough?
Yeah, I think he did as well.
He did, yeah.
Ultimate Fighter 23. He lost to Andrew Sanchez. He's one of he was. He's not there anymore, but he was one of John Jones's teammates. And there was a lot of talk about him being like the new prospect.
That talk was around the tough time, wasn't it?
He was about 4-0, yeah.
I think I remember Dana talking about it, saying, this is the guy coming out of here. And then he lost. He lost. Did you say it was Sanchez he lost to in the final?
Yeah.
And
lost to Sanchez by decision. Then he went to World Series of Fighting and lost by guillotine, but that was a gas tank issue there. Then he came back into the Contender Series and was doing well against Marquez, but then lost. So he didn't get signed from that. Marquez did. And then he went, he got a fight in Bellator, a fight in Brave, 2 fights in Brave, and then came back to the Contender Series and got another first round. But he's on a 5-fight win streak now, but they've all been stoppages.
Yeah.
The question's still there. What does it look like when he gets back to his stall at the end of the first round? We should have put him in there against Rodolfo Vieira.
See who collapses first.
Yeah. 5 1-minute rounds.
Wow, that'd be fireworks.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah. So Imavov is 6'3" and very sort of long and rangy.
Yeah.
But Phil Hawes has fought Bestiev, who is similar in that build. So he's seen that picture before. I'm not saying the skill sets are necessarily comparable, but that picture, he has seen that before. Imavov seems like he's got a decent gas tank. Seems like you
didn't watch his debut then?
No.
He fought Jordan Williams, and it was
Jordan
Williams. It was on Fight Island. It was a lot of fun for the first, I don't know, 5 minutes, and then they both really started to struggle with gas. But that's my concern here is that Phil Hawes is going to come out guns blazing, and he's going to exhaust himself trying to finish Imavov. Nasty Imavov, and then Imavov is going to be too gassed from trying to recover from the first round onslaught, and
then they both lie down on the backs and go, let's call it a draw. Just make this stop. We've had enough. That'll do.
So if we both, it's like putting guns down at the same time. Let's just both tap the canvas at the same time.
Gentleman's agreement. We've had enough.
I mean, the thing is, he's got wins. Like, he had a win over Jonathan Munoz before he came into the UFC, and I remember watching that fight for research, and it was a great performance. Munoz is a UFC veteran, and it was in Munoz's territory. Like, people were cheering and making loads of noise for him, and he just came in and shut the show down. He has got the potential to look very good, but it's that first round thing. 1, 2,
he's
3,
going to
4,
he's going to have to
5,
batten
6.
down the hatches, isn't he? And you're going to think Phil Hawes is going to come out and do what he likes doing and put a load of pressure on.
And two-thirds of his wins are first round. So it's going to be a wild first round. It might just be who's made that correction, or whether Imavov can keep his gas tank intact to an extent while Phil Hawes tries to wear himself out. Yeah.
I mean, it's a tough. If you look at Phil Hawes in terms of an athlete, it doesn't look like he's added that muscle tissue to himself. It looks like he trains, and obviously he gets hypertrophy effect from training and what have you. But it's not like he's a gym rat and he's just like all he's doing is squats all day. He's just sort of built that way. It's just a tough place to be. You produced massive amounts of power, and I'd assume his team will be constantly trying to train his conditioning to give something to underpin that power. But
you put anxiety in there, though. You put that fear of that feeling of running out of gas.
Ugh.
Oh, it's the worst. Like, you can step into the first round, and honestly, if you surveyed every UFC fighter for the next year and asked them what they were most nervous about going into the fight, it was getting tired.
It's like we touched on before about trying to finish a choke, and then it's not, and then you don't finish it, and then you're like, oh, they're gone. Oh, they're actually gone.
Yeah.
Oh, they're not going to come back either. They are not coming back. Get off me.
It's horrible. If anybody out there has not pushed themselves to that kind of point of fatigue,
you learn a few things.
It gives you a weird sense of anxiety when you know it's coming. Like when I was driving over to do those sled sessions on a Monday night after it was too dark to run outdoors, and they used to give me proper anxiety on the way into the gym. Like, I'd be like talking myself up, like, it's okay, we can get through it.
I mean,
like looking at my clock, I'm like 6:15. By 8 o'clock, I'll be getting back in my car. I'll look at my car in the car park.
I'm coming
in an
back.
hour and a quarter. I'll be back. I'll be a different person, but I'll be back.
I mean, certain members of our team were late on Saturday mornings, but I was never sure whether they were late or they were just sat in the car because they didn't want to get out. They were too worried about what was about to happen, and they were just sat in there thinking, could I ring them and say I'm not here?
But then you add that on top of the idea, and it's not even an idea because he's felt it several times, of being at that point of complete exhaustion and someone still be...
Well, we should. There's another level to this. It's all right talking about those levels of anxiety and fatigue in training, but in training, generally, you've got your teammates around you that aren't actually trying to finish you. You would hope. So then you put that on top of there, and the anxiety about getting paid, the anxiety about whether you're going to get cut, all these kind of things. That's a lot for your system to be dealing with. and the anxiety raises and the cortisol raises, and then everything else shuts down in the opposite direction.
And all the most embarrassing knockouts are when someone's completely run out of gas.
Yeah.
Because you can just
you can't hold tension either, can you?
Do you remember Mark Coleman against Pete Williams back in the day? And this was back when he was wearing shoes and you could still kick in the head. Remember that? And Mark Coleman was just so gassed. Like it was like he was watching the foot come into his face. It was like, oh, here we go.
Oh,
just
it did hit me. Yeah.
Bad.
So he's like the opposite of what I perceive Phil Hawes has been. He looked like he layered that muscle on top.
Yeah.
Whether he had some assistance during that time or not is
during those
a different
times,
story. Yeah. Almost certainly had some assistance. He layered all of that muscle on top there, and that's when it definitely becomes problematic.
But whether, I mean, this is maybe a side conversation, but whether the muscles added naturally or unnaturally, there's a point that where muscle mass is just too fatiguing for the body to.
You just can't. You don't have you can't feed. You can't feed the monster.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So what's your prediction?
I think
round of the night.
Phil Hawes will be too much for him in that first round.
You reckon? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'll be a bit too much, and just swamp him a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another first round finish for Phil Hawes.
Yeah. Imagine if it ends up being a third round.
Yeah.
Just
stops him at the end. Stops him in the final minute of the third round.
So, if you thought about a Russian wrestler, what would he look like?
Oh, this was your line that you prepared for that. Okay. Good thing you didn't waste it.
Yeah,
he'd look a lot like Alexei Olinek.
He would, wouldn't he?
He would, yeah. But then you got Alexei Olinek, who quite happily pulls people into mount and still strangles them unconscious.
That is a horrible way to go.
It's horrible.
Miserable.
Horrible. I had him do it on me, when he was fighting in, was it St. Petersburg or something? And I was
with the fisting on the artery. Yeah.
And it's even worse when there's a glove on, because obviously you got to think, this was just his fist in the hotel with no wraps and no glove or anything, and he pushes it in like that, and then he just squeezes to the point where
miserable way to go.
It just feels like your whole neck's gonna pop. It's not pleasant at all.
Death by Olinek.
The fact,
horrible.
Olinek.
Nice.
And he pulls people into bad positions to get it. Now, I will on the flip side say Chris Daukaus is a bit of an anomaly as well in this weight class. Not because he's got a weird submission that he pulls people into, but because he moves like a welterweight.
Yeah, definitely.
Like he's fast, he's agile, he's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so at least he's going to have the knowledge of disengaging if he gets tied up. We know how to beat Olinek because we've seen Overeem do it now, and if Daukaus does the same thing, he'll do the same thing.
Yeah.
Like he's got wicked fast hands. He manages his combinations very well as well. It's not like he's just heavyweight punching power. It's like he's pat. He's picking his shots really nicely.
That's the way. That's definitely the way to win. One of the things I sort of like about Olinek is he's not even slightly interested in striking.
Doesn't care.
He just wings these things, windmills over it, just to get close enough to you that even if he could just grab hold of a little bit of you, you're in trouble now.
He's
and
like
just relentless the way he wrestles, and he flows between position to position, and nothing. Very rarely do people clean break off him. He always just holds on to something and then suckers you into the death roll again.
What it reminds me of, and Wad, you'll remember these guys, when you walk into an old judo school and you look along the row when they're lined up along the mats, and there's some blokes down the end that have got fingers that have never been relocated once they've been dislocated. They've never got any hair on this part of their head because it's been worn down from just driving it into somebody else's face. And you know what I mean? And they've washed their gi so many times it's shrunk, so it's now past their elbows. And they just turtle up. And they wait until you've done everything you can, and then they roll you over into scaffold and just lean on you until you can't breathe.
Yeah,
he's one of those guys. But
neck
with
cranks, Ezekiel's,
with all the technical ability as well of I know how to take this person's ear away.
Yeah. Do you remember the
70 odd fights? 80 fights.
The choke from standing tie up. I can't remember who it was against. But it was in the clinch, and then he just sort of moved his arms away and just started trying to.
Junior Albini,
and then they wrapped him up and then pulled him on the floor. Yeah.
Then my favourite was the other fella that let me find the guy's name. I can see his face now. Tapped him in mount.
Yeah.
Victor Pesta. Ezekiel choke at 257 in the first round. Victor Pesta sat up in mount position, having no idea what had happened.
Didn't make any sense.
He was like, what's
going on?
And then like the referee's like, no, you're losing. He's like, I'm mounted. Like, how is that? Yeah.
So for me, this is Chris Daukaus' fight to lose. Absolutely, he can win this. He can pick him apart. But God damn it, if you don't get your distance right, you are gonna suffocate to death.
Yeah.
And there's it's like walking a tightrope with like crocodiles underneath. And yep, that's fine. Just walk that rope and you'll be absolutely fine. They can't get you.
Yep.
But one slip and you're in a world of pain.
Yeah.
Mate, Olinek's 43. He fought 3 times in last year.
Yeah.
Incredible. I'm going to pick against him. I'm going to go with Daukaus, but I respect Olinek a huge amount.
Yeah.
And I almost like how I like how he just doesn't care and he's going to do his thing. And he's just going to drown you in the worst possible way.
Clinging on to that mohawk as well.
He reminds me of a good friend of ours in the way he wrestles you to death.
Yeah. He's clinging onto that mohawk as well. It's running down the back of his head, but he's clinging onto it. I think he's a fascinating individual. He's a very kind of he's a nice, and I mean this in no disrespect, but he's a nice kind of throwback to an older time of martial arts for these younger guys to test themselves against.
Absolutely.
You know.
Yeah.
Like I was looking at his record there. He's got like 66 fights, 65 fights.
Yeah. And I mean, you can imagine if the UFC wasn't in existence, he would be teaching wrestling in a school in somewhere in Russia.
For sure.
And it would be very, very successful, and he'd be as happy as he is now, you'd imagine.
Yeah. Or he'd be strangling bears in a circus somewhere. You know.
That's a slightly different thread to what I was thinking. But maybe strangling bears.
Life's take different paths. It could go one or the other.
Know. Yeah. Yeah.
Rosa against Minna. So
both sort of been around a little bit, haven't they? Minna's 25-11.
Rosa's been around but doesn't have the record to show it. But he's a ATT guy, isn't he? He's been there for years. I remember calling his debut. He took it on short notice and gave a hell of a performance. Who was that against? Dennis Seaver. He took Dennis Seaver to a decision and lost, but then he came in, he beat Soriano.
Yeah, he's a funny one, Rose. He seems to have a lot of, it sort of goes back to what we spoke about before, he seems to have a lot of techniques, but they don't necessarily get put in the right flow, in the right order. He doesn't pick the right thing for the right task a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Like I think he sort of threw 2 spinning back kicks that missed by 4 foot, and it just seemed like he wasn't in skill acquisition. It's called perception action coupling. So he was perceiving something and he wasn't coupling the right thing to it, and he just kept doing it, and it just sort of screams a remedial level of understanding of that aspect.
You mean he was trying to put a round peg in a square hole?
Well, yeah, a little bit, yeah.
He does do that, and I think maybe one of the reasons why they've put him in this fight is because they feel like Rosa's wrestling and sub defense might be enough to push Minna out of the first round and see how deep his game is. Because the time when he's been out of the first round, he's picked up losses.
Yeah.
Grant Dawson second round. The other one was Kevin Kroom, who was he's now a UFC fighter. Again, second round. He's got wins in the second round, but I've not watched all of these fights, so I don't know whether he put an absolute beating on him in the first and it was ready to be.
He's just a submachine, and he just he'll constantly attack you for a sub.
It is ridiculous. You look down his record, and this is another reason why he's got 35 fights on his record compared to 17 or whatever it is, because he's subbing guys in the first round, so he can take a fight next week.
Yeah, he's all good. Yeah.
Look at that, rear naked choke. So we've got Disorderly Conduct. What a great show name. 25 seconds, 2 minutes 21, 2:04, 1:13, 1:14, 3:39, 33 seconds, 1:49, 40 seconds. I mean, he's wrecking people with rear naked chokes and guillotine.
Rosa's a black belt.
Yeah.
He's got an advanced understanding.
Square peg round hole. Yeah. Sometimes he'll dive into a guard to finish a fight when he probably shouldn't. Yeah. That's where he might get caught up here. If he fights smart and he knows where he challenges Minna, then he keeps this one standing, he keeps it at range, he stuffs his takedowns, he defends his neck, and he boxes him up.
He's 9 fights in the UFC, so he's accumulated some good experience there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Mina's a killer though.
You said that at the exact second I was going to say, yeah, let's lock Rosa in.
See how I did that?
You knew that. P. Diddy right now. Well, it's too late because I've written it down. Yeah, lock Rosa in. I like his experience. You don't know who does he fight out of? Who's coaching him?
Charles Rosa.
Yeah,
I think he's ATT still.
Yeah, okay.
He was when he made his debut. I don't think he's moved. I might be wrong, but I don't think he has.
Yeah, good experience. He's a legit
graded
black
under
belt
Laboria as well, I think.
If he can, Mina's going to come and he's constantly going to hunt in that first round. But I feel like Rosa should be smart enough coming out of that camp to deal with that. And yeah, lock him in.
Sure.
Yeah.
Seems doubtful.
No doubt here. Back yourself.
Co-main event.
Yeah.
Caitlin Vieira.
Yeah.
Or
against. I'll let you say it. Kuntiskaya. Kuntiskaya. Yana
Kunitskaya.
A pub in Japan is called Izakaya. That's the thing that reminds me.
Is that right? You're getting her name mixed up with a pub in Japan.
Yeah. No, pubs in Japan is Izakaya.
Is it like a Weatherspoons, like a Japanese Weatherspoons alternative?
Yeah. Yeah. Right. They're sort of similar to each other in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah. They're sort of similar to each other, but Vieira looks like she enjoys fighting a lot more than Kunitskaya does. And I'm basing that more on Kunitskaya's last fight than anything else.
Yeah.
She didn't seem like she wanted to be in there and wouldn't entertain a fight at range with her opponent at all. And I think she's probably going to try and do the same thing with Vieira, because if she's standing at range, Vieira's going to be aggressive with her striking. She's a tall, rangy fighter. She's big for the weight class.
Kunitskaya got battered by Aspinall, didn't she? And she was bigger than her. And yeah, she just got beat. Aspinall really sort of won me over on that fight. That
might be why she fought Stolarenko. That's maybe why she fought Stolarenko the way she did, though, was because of that fight. I mean, she was just up against the fence, like beating her up in the clinch. She didn't really want to engage in any other ranges. And I think Caitlin Vieira, with her ability on the ground as well as her aggressive, striking skills. I've got
next to Caitlin. She loves it.
She does.
She loves it, doesn't she? She comes to fight. You know what? I think this might be a good matchup for her, because I think she could. I don't know if intimidate is the right word, but she could come at Yana and. She could put her in a space where she starts questioning herself a little bit, and she has a few flashbacks to sort of getting beaten up.
You see, you look back on Vieira's record, and that the only loss is that knockout from Irene Aldana. And I've watched that fight a bunch of times, and it was one of the best examples of a gazelle punch in MMA.
Right.
Bang! Swung forward with a left hook and covered more distance than Vieira was expecting. But then when you've seen her in there against the likes of Zingano, who loves a scrap, and Sajara Eubanks, who loves a scrap, she always holds her own and she looks good. And I agree with you. I think if she can, I think Jana's going to try and tie her up and put her against the fence and try and make it slow and uncomfortable for her. And I think anytime she breaks, if she's just very aggressive, she's going to start getting Jana level changing out of panic and that kind of stuff. And there might be submissions there. I mean, she's got an arm triangle win over Sarah McMahon. So even if she does get taken down by a good wrestler, she's more than able to hold her own.
I think Caitlin, I think she's legit.
Yeah,
I think she's going to be really good. I think she's going to figure. I think this will be a great win for her. I think this will give us some kudos.
6. She's 6 in the rankings, she's one above Kunitskaya.
Yeah.
You could see Caitlin Vieira in there with any of the ones above, any of the fighters above her. I mean, obviously she's got that loss to Aldana, but if she puts 2 or 3 good wins together after that, you're back in the same kind of pool. A win over Aspinall would probably do her well, but I know she's just had a surgery. Holly Holm, Jermaine Durandamy. I could see her in there against either of those, and it'd be.
Oh, Holly Holm would be a fun fight.
It would be a hell of a challenge for her, trying to get close to her.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's what she's going to need to do to get to get the championship fight, she's going to need to beat one of those two. I think she could have a really good fight against Kuntiskaya, though.
I think it'd be a fun fight. I do feel like she'll come out on top. Yeah, I do. Lock her in.
Okay, main event then.
This is rescheduled, isn't it?
Yeah, I believe so. Check if we're still recording. Still recording.
The problem Derrick Lewis has is that Blaydes is an absolute machine, isn't he? He's an efficiency machine. He's disciplined. He knows what he's very, very good at.
He's got that Colorado,
yeah. Very, very, very well drilled. But I can't remember when you spoke about it a while ago. Is when you know you've got that nuclear weapon. Is all it's about is just finding the place to let it off. And it's like a fail safe, and it's like a fallback. Oh yeah, fine, it's not going great. It doesn't matter. I just got to get some space, and then I'll find a home for it. And you know, I think Lewis is getting better. I don't think he's relying on that power. I feel like he's incrementing his skill set. He seems to be in better shape than I've seen him. He seems to. You know, sometimes it's hard to actually pass judgment on what's going on in their training life, but he seems like he's fully committed to getting this done. And he's hilarious, so that obviously helps.
He is hilarious.
And sways things a little bit.
There are a few things that Derrick Lewis does really well. Obviously, he's got knockout power, but he's also very good at stopping people taking him down and getting back to his feet once he's been taken down. I remember, like, way back early in his career, before his takedown offense had gotten good and he was getting taken down by the likes of Gonzaga and Roy Nelson, like, he's just standing up with them, clinging onto him. So he's
just one leg squatted up.
Yeah, it's like an old man getting out of a chair. He just stands up. Like, and obviously the downside is he's not using technique, so it's taxing his cardiovascular system. But then if you go back into his fight against Latifi, for example, he uses really good takedown defense all the way through that fight. He's also got those wild flying knees and high kicks as well that you wouldn't expect from a big man. Like, if I'm Curtis Blaydes, I'm thinking of all the things that I can do that are going to incrementally slow Derrick Lewis down over the distance. So, like, if I'm at distance, I'm going to be kicking the lead leg, because Lewis without movement is a sit-in duck. I'm going to be attacking his midsection, because we've seen Lewis hurt to the midsection, like folded up against the fence and then swinging punches back. He's got no poker face, Lewis. If he's hurt, you know he's hurt. If he's tired, you can tell he's tired. So, if I'm Blaydes, I've got 3 lines of attack. I'm taking his legs away with low kicks at a distance and knowing that the only way he can attack me is to counter with power punches.
But yeah, so you're whipping that front leg kick in, and his counter is that overhand right, to counter your leg kicks. So you're playing with some fire there, aren't you?
You are, but then if you Curtis Blaydes and the first thing you do when he throws a low kick is you feint, just feint a low. And then Lewis is now not thinking about punching you; he's thinking about defending the takedown. Like, you could, because Lewis is limited in what he's good at doing offensively, you can kind of railroad him into doing those things. Like, so, like, if Blaydes starts kicking his lead leg, he knows that Lewis's only defense is to try and punch him. He's not going to try and take him down from it. He's not going to check it.
No, he's not.
He's more likely to jump over it than check it. so then that's at a distance. So you know you've got one channel of attack from Lewis coming. Then I'd work the body as much as possible, either in the clinch or from a distance. Because, I mean, you know, Blaydes has got a good jab to the body as well as jab to the head. And then, like, open him up, like, attack his body, attack his head, but try and cut him, you know, try and damage him. So in the later rounds, he's remembering that this is a 5-round fight. I
mean, Lewis is, you know, Tybura controlled him for a lot of that fight from the top position, and you know, he just kept working and he worked his way back out of that. I'm not sure it's cut and dried if Blaydes takes him down. I think he'll make him work for it, but Blaydes does that nice thing where he traps you up against the fence, doesn't he? And then he takes an arm away. It's a bit Habib-esque, like, process. Like, he just gradually sort of creeps up your body, and suddenly your legs are wrapped up, and then your back arm is wrapped up, and suddenly you've got one arm to try and defend 3 things.
Which Daniel Cormier did to Derrick Lewis at 248 pounds. And Blaydes is 260. And he's a much bigger heavyweight than Cormier.
Like that, I love that. I love that wrestle. Me and Jimmy have been talking about this up at the gym, and he's been coaching our pro squad on those sequences from today. We're reaping from the fence, and then the process of tying the legs up, and then just slow suffocating, getting your hips, getting the arm. Now you're in complete control, and he's got a nice ground and pound sequence off the back of that. It's a underappreciated skill set, underappreciated flow. Like, I know a lot of people probably watch ground and pound and just think that's what you're just wailing on people, but there's what people don't see is the sequences within that. You know, it's not just wailing at each other on the floor. You know, there's a lot of trapping and pinning and manipulating people's hips to get the strikes to be effective.
So with that in mind, how many people that have taken Derrick Lewis down have taken him down so they don't have to stand with him, and how many have taken him down because that's what they do, that's what their game is? Because that's what Curtis Blaydes does. He takes you down, he breaks you down, and he beats you up.
Yeah.
And over 25 minutes with his Colorado,
I personally, I can't see it. I've got it down. I can't see it going any other way other than Blaydes.
Yeah.
Obviously, the nuclear weapon.
It's the F-bomb, isn't it?
The nuclear weapon of a right hand.
You say that like George Bush says it.
I knew that would wind up.
Nuclear. Here we go. George Bush could never say that, and what terrified me is that he had his finger on the button. Yeah, if you can't say it, you can't touch it. That's the rule. It's like in a gym, you know. If you can't lift the dumbbell,
just leave it alone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I actually think it could be a miserable night for Lewis. It could be a miserable night.
It could be a long, slow, miserable night.
Slow death.
Yeah, because Blaydes is not. I mean, he gets emotional around the fight, like pre and post. But when he's in the fight, he's competing. He's similar to Usman. He's got that mentality of, I'll do what I need to do to beat you.
Yeah.
And Lewis gets frustrated and he starts winging a little bit when he's short on time. And
it's like slow cooking a leg of lamb, innit? You're in there for like
big old
6
lamb.
hours. Yeah, giant leg of lamb.
Leg of elephant.
It's just slow cooking you in the cooker.
That's embrace the grind, isn't it? That's what DC says. It's the grind cycle.
I've come to appreciate watching a lot of DC and talking to you about. I've come to appreciate that almost like hidden flow of skills a lot. It's so effective, and it's so miserable when you're on the end of it. Yeah, and I think it goes under the radar a little bit.
It does. It does. People don't quite appreciate what they're doing, but it is a process of breaking someone mentally. Yeah. By completely shutting them down, and like I've understood that process from a striking skill point from a long time ago, but to now be able to recognize the pockets that you can do it in MMA with jiu-jitsu, and that being the most obvious one in MMA, up against the fence, making someone carry your weight. And then every time they're working to get up, you break them down. When they're down, you start beating them up until they want to start escaping again. Then it goes back to control. I think Blaydes could run this division if he has the right performance at the right time. I think he was unlucky in the second fight against Ngannou because he was just caught with a big power shot. That can always happen in this fight.
And heavyweights, right? And that's the heavyweights life. You can have the best game plan, and you can be executing that game plan. And then the trajectory of the fight changes instantly because of the nature of who they are.
And the benefit in Lewis being who he is, although he's bolstering what he's already good at with good takedown defense and better conditioning, the instinct to being a fighter is that's part of what's responsible, in my opinion, in making those quick shifts in like changing the trajectory of a shot because you're reading what's happening. Instead of Lewis going, okay, I'm stepping in with a 1, 2, 3 here, he's stepping in to punch him, and if he's throwing the right hand and he sees Blaydes level changing, he'll just switch that to a shovel punch with the inside of his hand. He'll nudge you with his forearm if he needs to clear spaces. There's like an instinctive way of fighting, like Vanderaa early on in the card. Yeah, it's a similar kind of like, my instinct is to hit you, and everything else is supplementary. Like Vanderaa, another good example. He took his feet with him, which is why his hands were so good. His hands weren't actually very good. Right. It's the fact that he took his feet with him when he was striking.
And he just real time adjustment was very, very good, wasn't it?
There you go.
I've always got something for you. So that's why you have me on this podcast.
I spent 20 minutes trying to explain something, and he goes, "Oh yeah, that's called real time adjustment in the business." Okay.
Should be fun.
It should be a good one. Another episode done.
Lovely.
Get the app, download it, get yourself an account, join in the conversation, and see how you do. Because you can win real money on this for nothing.
Yeah, £1,000 this week, I think.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
So get yourself in. And it's divided up, so you can get a few quid if you're somewhere on the leaderboard as well. So get involved. UFC Picks app for the UFC Picks Show. Remember, you can play along with all of the other UFC fans on the new UFC Picks app, available for download on Apple iOS, Google Play, or visit www.playufcpicks.com. It's free to play, and there's a chance to win £5,000 cash. Participants must be 18 years of age and older, UK and Ireland residents only, terms and conditions apply, and remember to always play responsibly. If you or a friend have a problem with gambling, make sure you seek help and visit www.begamblingaware.org.